I'm going to go ahead with the meeting beginning ritual.
起立，面向佛堂，参加三鞠躬、一鞠躬、再鞠躬、三鞠躬，参加各位点传世一鞠躬，开班一鞠躬，请坐下。Please be seated.
Today, like Bill, am getting used to winter. Wendy and I sold our condominium in Rancho Cucamonga. In fact, escrow is going to be closing any day now. And so about midsummer, we moved up to the mountains. And although in most places in Southern California, you don't see the change of seasons, we see it a little bit here. And it hasn't snowed yet. And it may or may not snow for Christmas. It probably won't, but it did last year. And hopefully we might get a white Christmas too. But it is funny, Bill talking about the cyclical nature of things. And like Bill, I tend to be an indoor guy kind of, but I do like to look out the window and experience nature, or sometimes get outside the door. And I feel fortunate to be able to see that cyclical change. It's such a wonderful reminder of the Tao and of nature and how it touches every aspect of our lives. And of course, today my presentation is on chapter 3 of the Tao of Joy Every Day, the Tao of Learning Opportunities. And my little subtitle here is Let Others Be Your Teacher. And when I think of others being teachers in my life, I realize that a lot of it has to do with karmic affinity. And, you know, the people in your lives, whether they're people that are difficult or people that are helpful to you, karmically they're there for a reason. So everyone is a gift in one way or another. And karmic affinity it always strikes me. I see it so much in my own life. I can recognize it. The parallels I have with different people, or the similar tracks we may be on, or the things that we go through at similar times, or that others have gone through and that they can in turn help me, or if I've been through it, I do my best to help them if it's appropriate to. And when I think of learning opportunities, and you know, I put this presentation together, I put the materials together actually quite a while ago, a couple of weeks ago, maybe even longer than that actually. But it's funny, you know, the things that happened this week in my life sort of really reiterated what I wanted to talk about today. And a very good friend of mine, we've been friends for probably about 17 years now, I think. He just had a newborn baby about 3 weeks ago. And last Sunday, Wendy went on a cruise, so I dropped her off, and my mother-in-law was kind enough to watch our 2 kids, and so I was able to get by and see my friend's new baby and spend some time with him. And it's such a wonderful thing. And the parents listening to this will understand, when you have a child, especially your first child, like my friend just said, it's such a life-changing experience, because you, in that moment, you take on the role of selfless, loving parent, and you have this little being that's dependent upon you for everything. And it really does change your focus and your outlook and the way you view things as a whole. And that certainly happened with my friend, and it's wonderful to see someone I love, like my friend, experiencing this. And of course I can relate to it, because I remember what it was like when my children were first born. The overwhelming feeling of joy, undescribable joy. And that's what he was in the middle of. And you know, he's an example of, I know he's going to be a terrific father, and certainly he'll be an example of the things that he does will be things that I will try to emulate. I will try to learn from watching him do it. And hopefully maybe, you know, I can share a little bit of experience and things I've learned along the way, if it's appropriate to do so. But one of the things that he told me, you know, he's in a bowling league, and he has some acquaintances in that bowling league. He's on a bowling team, and he and his wife brought the baby to the bowling event that prior Friday, And one of his acquaintances looked at the baby, and my friend is from El Salvador. He grew up in the 70s, 80s in El Salvador. And this person looked at the baby, and she has this beautiful, full black head of hair. And oddly enough, what this person decided to say was, wow, she looks like she's fresh from the Mexican border. Why don't you shave her head? And when he told me that, my jaw dropped. The fact that anyone would think that something like that would be okay to say is mind-boggling to me. But, my friend is very together. He's one of the most decent, easygoing, generous, kindest people I've ever known. And he let that roll off. But obviously it was upsetting. And he talked about that. And, two things came to mind. One is the best thing you can do if you encounter a situation like that, where you encounter someone who's, at least in that aspect of their lives, just mired in ignorance. The best thing you can do is, one, to realize how wrong it is to do what they did, and to make sure that you don't ever do anything like that, to re-examine your own internal prejudices and make sure that, you get that in check and realize that that's an illusion, that, race or religion or anything, any of the differences between people that you might see, that's an illusion. Really, we're all connected. We're all from the same thing. As Bill said, every child has a parent, and you can go further and further back. And if you look at evolutionary biology, we're related to everything that we see that's a being or that manifests in the world. If you go back far enough, you'll find a common ancestor with a dandelion. The science is absolute on this. But the best thing to do is to realize that when you encounter that type of behavior, is to realize that that's an example of what to avoid. But there's another aspect of it as well, and this is the harder aspect, but it's to have compassion for that person and to try your best to remember that everyone has a Buddha nature. Everyone has a true self, that's their best self, the part of them that's limitless, that it can accomplish anything, that can be the most decent and best person they can be, including the difficult person that you may encounter. And that, of course, takes real compassion. One is to, not respond in kind, right? To not, there's plenty of ways you can envision people, especially in this society, reacting to a statement like my friend encountered, right? It between some people, it could have been a fist fight right there. Or something else could have been said. My friend could have said something and degrading to that person. And of course, he didn't do that. And it takes compassion to understand that the other person is mired in ignorance. And when I encounter, it's very rare that I encounter something like that, but I have in the past. And I always think of the story that Derek told about a boy and his son, or a father and a son on a train. And the father has the tickets in his pocket, and he had sort of dozed off and fallen asleep. And the conductor comes by to check the tickets, and the conductor's very rude and, is demanding the ticket and behaving just very unfriendly, to say the least. And, the man sort of wakes up and he stumbles and he goes and he gets the ticket and he gives it to the guy and he punches it. And the guy moves on. And the son says, well, why did you take that treatment from him? I mean, clearly if it came to a physical confrontation, you could take him. And, why should you put up with that terrible person acting that way, acting so terribly? And the father says, when I deal with someone like that, I always think to myself that when I deal with them, I only have to deal with them for a short span of time. But that person has to live with that mental state that causes that behavior their whole life, or unless they change, ultimately all the time. And, I think about how true that is. And that's where compassion stems from, when you can see things that way, from why people are the way they are. I mean, yes, it's true. There are people in the world that are, frankly, they're a mess. And it's okay to observe that. I mean, reality is reality. But if you can have compassion to understand why people are that way, and to realize that there is a better self within them, and that sometimes, you just have to grin and bear it, but to realize that that person is actually suffering. And, having spent a large portion of my life being mired in ignorance, I don't think I would have ever done anything like what my friend encountered, but certainly I can relate to being mired in ignorance and the horribleness of living that way. And I'm so thankful that, largely because of the Tao, mainly because I was able to transform and change my life in a positive way. And that's, of course, an ongoing process. I'm still doing that. And it's funny how these things happen, but within a day or two of that happening, my friend encountered another situation. He encountered another resource in his life, this time a complete stranger. He and his wife had gone to Costco, and he went to park his truck, and my friend has a rather large truck, so he backed it in. And, he has a rear camera and audio sensors that tell him when he's too close to the other car, so he gets fairly close because he didn't want to stick out. And, didn't hit anything, and as he parked the car, he and his wife got out, they went out to get the baby, and the person who owned the truck behind him just began yelling at him and cursing at him and getting in his face. My friend said practically spitting in his face. And, my friend is he's a tough person. He's been through very hard things in his life. He grew up in a third world country during a time when it was very war-torn. He witnessed terrible atrocities, and by no means is a weakling. He can hold his own in a fight if he had to. And he tried his best to calm the guy down, but wasn't able to. And so he did the best thing. He and his wife just got in the car and drove off and found another place to park, which is the way to be. That's absolutely the right solution, because everyone walked away from that unharmed, and the chances that he'll ever have to encounter that particular individual again are probably astronomical. But again, another example of someone who is out of control, that they can blow up so and behave so emotionally and out of control over something so small and insignificant. But, it is a reality. There are people that are that way. And like I said, all you can do is really learn from them how not to be, and to exercise as much compassion as you can. And then, of course, letting others be your teachers has another aspect too, and this is usually with the people that you love and spend the most of your time with, and that's, of course, your friends and your family. And I think about what great teachers they all are to me, and how fortunate I am to have the people in my life, both Wendy and her mother. They care about me tremendously. And, it's funny, personally, I'm a big believer in never giving someone unsolicited advice. But what I will tell you is that is something to sort of look at for your own behavior. But when it comes to other people giving advice, one thing important to keep in mind is that often, whether the advice is good or not, and oftentimes it will be good, they do it from a place of caring and love. Like, they're trying to give advice because they care about you. And it's important to keep that in mind, and to be open to what you can learn from what other people have to offer. And, it starts with those most close to you, your friends and your family. Wendy knows me better than anyone on this planet. She can tell you, the good things and the bad things, warts and all. She knows Alex better than anyone. And I'm glad that, we have the kind of relationship where we can talk to each other about how we're succeeding, but also how we're failing. And, we help each other grow that way. She's my greatest teacher in that respect. And I feel so absolutely fortunate to have that. So there's a little bit about the Tao of Learning Opportunities. I'm going to get into the presentation more directly now, if I can here. So I want to start with the Tao Te Ching, chapter 27. Good traveling does not leave tracks. Good speech does not seek faults. Good reckoning does not use counters. Good closure needs no bar, and yet cannot be opened. Good knot needs no rope, and yet cannot be united. Therefore, sages often save others, and so do not abandon anyone. They often save things, and so do not abandon anything. This is called following enlightenment. Therefore, the good person is the teacher of the bad person. The bad person is the resource of the good person. Those who do not value their teachers and do not love their resources, although intelligent, they are greatly confused. This is called the essential wonder. And, you know, the deepness of this chapter is, it's so multi-layered, but there's so much to it. The idea of how you treat others, when it talks about locking the door, it's, you know, I think about this with my staff at work. What I try to do is I try to lock the door. I try to treat them so well that they'd never leave. and that's my hope, because frankly, they're so helpful to me as a team. The people that I work with, they're great, but they both teach me in so many different ways, and they assist me and help me obtain success. And I do my best to help them attain success, and we have mutual success together. I think how fortunate I am, the people I have in my life. You know, the warehouse supervisor that helps me with so many things, he's so fantastic and wonderful. My accounts receivable accountant is so helpful. She's a wonderful person, very kind, very generous, a very devout Christian, but she doesn't, you know, push it on people, but she talks about her faith a lot. And, you know, I'm at a point in my life where I can appreciate her Christian perspective on things, because, well, you know, I used to be a devout Catholic, and, you know, which is a form of Christianity, of course, and I speak Christian. I understand. I understand the meaning of the things and how they relate to Taoism, to the teachings we have. Sometimes it's might be a little bit of a stretch to connect it, but I do see that. And when you're open, you allow all these people to be your teachers. And this sort of feeds well into an ancient Chinese saying, which goes like this: when three people walk together, my teacher must be among them. It's true, and again, that's karmic affinity that brings people together at different times and different places. And when you're in tune to it and open to learning from others, it's amazing the things you'll learn that you never expect to learn because you're open to it. Just listening to Bill and Derek every week, I mean, the things that I learn. I mean, today in Bill's presentation, there's just so many things he spoke about that just hit things that I need to work on. And he has such a deep understanding, and I'm so appreciative of both Derek and Bill for what they offer to all of us. So learning from others, to learn, we must truly be humble. We have to practice listening to others with an open mind, bent with an attitude toward discovery of what others can teach us. And of course, this is very true. If you're stuck in your own point of view and unopen to any others, you'll never learn. You'll only know what you know, and there's much more to life than that. And others have so much to offer. Asking others questions shows them that you're interested in what they have to say. Most people think about what they want to say next instead of keeping the focus of the conversation on what the other person is speaking about. This is so true. If you truly listen, and it's only by truly listening that you'll really learn from anyone. And this is, as I've said before, it's life-changing. You know, you start by doing it really with the people close to you, but afterwards it ripples out and expands to strangers even. And your teachers just arrive. When you listen, you'll notice your teachers all the time. It's a good habit to look for the good in others and then use those traits as something to aspire to and emulate in ourselves. My friend's reaction to the things he encountered that weekend and how he handled it so perfectly. You know, that's something that if I find myself in that situation, I want to be able to do as he did and get calmer, see the correct solution, realize that as a problem is arising, that a solution can be arising too, but you have to be calm and collected to see it so you can act on it and get out of a bad situation if necessary, or handle one as correctly as possible. Conversely, it is also a good habit to observe bad traits in others and to aspire to avoid those behaviors in ourselves. This is true. There's nothing wrong with observing failure in other people. The key thing is what you do with it. If you're just going to use it to criticize them and put them down and gain advantage over them or whatever, then that's not using it correctly. If you're going to use it to turn inward and see how you can avoid that type of behavior, that's a good way to handle it. And that will allow you to live by example, which is your best chance at changing someone who has bad traits, is by demonstrating the opposite way of being. So I just want to get briefly into some practical ways to learn from other people. One is reading. Reading allows us to learn from a lot of great people that we otherwise wouldn't have the chance to. Let's face it, most authors are not available to their readers the way our friend Derek Lin is. So most of the time you have limited personal access to them, but you can have virtually unlimited access to their experiences through books. So reading is a great way to learn from others. Also, too, as I said, listening to other people when they speak. If you want to learn from others, you have to listen to them and give them your full attention. Most people don't listen. But when you listen, people will be drawn to you. Your teachers will arrive in droves. This is so true. It's so funny. Something so, let's say, yin-based, where it's about quiet observation and listening, really listening with full attention. How it changes your life. It is amazing. People will be drawn to you because people have often a lot to say and a lot to teach. And if you're open to it and you have discernment, you can see it and learn from it. What about difficult people? Well, don't forget that they can be a very valuable resource to us as well. They demonstrate the things that we need to avoid repeating in our own actions. But to put this to practical use, it is helpful to observe in an unattached and unemotional way. If we let the poor behavior of others allow us to get emotional, we may miss the learning opportunity being presented to us. It's true. And the other thing about not having enough unattached perspective and unemotion and quelling your own emotion, it ensures that you won't be able to be compassionate, which is what difficult people need. They actually do need compassion. And that, of course, helps you deal with them in a whole different light because, 99% of life is attitude, and how you look at things often determines how they unfold. And if you can be calm and collected, you'll see the right thing to do. You'll see the need for compassion. You'll see why people are the way they are. And instead of reacting with anger, which sometimes is seemingly the the understandable response, you'll see what is difficult to do but worth doing, which is to respond with compassion and to find the best route to solve the issue of dealing with people that, well, frankly, are mired in ignorance sometimes. So I want to throw in a quote here from Gina Greenlee: "Experience is a master teacher, even when it's not our own." And this is absolutely true. To learn, you have to listen. And if you can listen to the people who love you and other people in your lives, you're on your way. So I'm going to start to sum it up here. In order to learn, we must practice humility and acknowledge that we have much to discover from others. Humility is a big part of it. If you think you know it all, you won't learn anything. And also, too, if you think you know it all, I can almost guarantee you that you don't. Listening to others with our full attention is a necessary skill to master if we truly want to learn from the people in our lives. From a practical standpoint, it's in listening and observing that we learn. Strive to look for the good traits in others and then work on developing those traits in ourselves. It's true. What we learn, I think of a lot of the good aspects of myself. I think about having that modeled to me by my mother. My mother was a wonderful woman, And I'm so lucky to have had her, and she taught me through example. And it's the same with other people in my life who I love and care for. They teach me through example. And emulating their good traits is a good thing to try. Especially because, like I said, often we're naturally drawn to people who are different from us. And I think of my friend that I spoke of earlier who just had the new baby. He's very much an extrovert and a people person. He has a lot of charisma. I'm really not like that. I'm very introverted, very introspective, and so we naturally balance each other out. But when he and I are at a party together, it's easy for me because he's the life of the party, and all I have to do is tell people, oh yeah, that guy over there, he's my friend, and so automatically it makes it easier. When he's not around, though, I try to be like him. I always think to myself, what would Omar do in a situation like this to get people talking and having fun? And I try to do that. And so striving to emulate the good traits in others is a good idea. Observe the flaws of others dispassionately and look to those people to provide examples of what to avoid in our own lives. And of course, once you do that, throw in a little compassion, a little genuine understanding of why the person is that way. Because I can almost guarantee when you come across people who are a mess, and I have in my life, as well as being a mess myself, I can almost always guarantee there's a reason why people are that way. They have experiences, they were born into situations that are very difficult, and it's that allows me to have compassion, to understand that people we're not born a mess. People just, messes are made sometimes by circumstances, and so compassion is always a good thing to give if you can. So I want to end by a book recommendation, of course, The Tao of Joy Every Day, a great book to use daily to help one study and learn the Tao teachings and put them into action. So there was the Tao of Learning Opportunities, Let Others Be Your Teacher. Thank you so much for giving me a chance to speak with you all today. I hope you all have a wonderful Sunday.
Thank you so much, Alex. In your talk, I especially enjoy the yin and yang aspect that you have worked into it. The Chinese expression, 三人行必有我师. When three people walk together, my teacher must be among them. Even a lot of Chinese people themselves, even though they can understand what the original expression says, they sometimes will assume that it's just on the positive end of things. What I mean is, they'll look for someone that they can learn from. When three people are together, one of them will know something that I don't, so I'll learn from that person. So they forget about the other side. The other side is, well, among the three people, there's probably someone, who can be very negative, who can be rude, who can be a great counterexample. So whether the teacher is on the positive end that you learn from, or on the negative end that you learn from by counterexample, the bottom line is that you can always learn. So the truly humble attitude would definitely end up with a lot of insights that you can observe pretty much anywhere. And I also absolutely agree with what you said about being detached as you observe. And in fact, a lot of times I apply the detached observation to myself. When I see someone negative, when I see someone doing something that I recognize as being contrary to the Tao, I'll assess my feelings. If I recognize what they do as negative, contrary to the Tao, but I don't have specifically a very strong feeling against it, then that reflects a level of confidence that I know how to avoid that pitfall for myself. On the other hand, and this is much more often, I will feel this visceral dislike with this person that I perceive as being very negative. I might be thinking, wow, how arrogant, I can't stand that. How bureaucratic, how this, how that, how inconsiderate. whenever I feel those strong emotions that almost like an animosity or even veering into the territory of hatred, I'll always ask myself the question, where does that come from within myself? And my answer is always the same. I always think, it's got to come from some sort of fear, because fear manufactures that animosity veering into hatred. So what is the fear that I have? I see. I'm afraid that I may become more like that person that I dislike. I fear that I may have a propensity to develop the same negative traits while becoming completely unaware and oblivious of those traits manifesting in myself. That fear causes me to have such a visceral dislike. And that's when I know that I need to really work on that. So the detached observation shows me what to pay attention to. Just wanted to offer that.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I feel the same way. When I feel emotion coming up strongly, rather than being bounced around by it, which is how most of my life it went down, I learned to detach from it and realize, why is this so strong in me? And an inward introspection really helps you gain an insight that you otherwise would not have. And yes, I so agree with what you stated there.
Let's go ahead and do the meeting ending ritual, everybody. 起立，面向佛堂，持架深鞠躬，一鞠躬，再鞠躬，三鞠躬，持架各位顶传十一鞠躬，斜翻一鞠躬。Well done, everybody. Thank you so much.